All right, well, this is Kyle Davis with Taylor Ryan, and we're here today for episode 6 of our interview series. This podcast is brought to you by Taylor Ryan, a strategic search and talent acquisition partner specializing in construction and engineering, real estate, development, and accounting and finance, and made possible by Hire Technologies, redefining the future of talent acquisition. If you're building a team or looking for your next career move, there's more information at taylorryan.com. Taylor Ryan is a proud member of the Vancouver Regional Construction Association, with over 700 members. VRCA is BC's largest and most inclusive association. A business hub for construction companies in the Vancouver area, the VRCA provides resources to be informed, competitive, successful now and in the future. To learn more about membership and benefits, visit vrca.ca for more info. This month, we're joined by Donna Grant, president of the VRCA. Donna, you started your career in marketing, which led to being the keynote speaker for the Construction Safety Alliance, the director of community for Canadian Construction Women, and most recently, a proposal manager with Scott before accepting this role as president of the VRCA. I have to say it's a very interesting career history, and I'm excited to learn how it all came together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to chat with you.
What would you say has been the greatest success in your career to date?
This role. Yeah, absolutely. This is a career epitome job. And it's not one that I would have even 3 years ago ever considered pursuing. And even when the opportunity came up, it was other members of the VRCA reaching out to me and saying, "We'd like you to think about throwing your hat in the ring for this." And you know, I'm embarrassed to say, and I'm trying to get better at this, the first thoughts in my head were self-doubt. But I'm getting better at quieting those thoughts. And then, so the next thing I did was find out what was involved and how could I be effective in the role. So I didn't put my focus on how could I get the job. My focus was on how would I be good at it if I got it. And I think that's ultimately how I ended up being the one selected, because my focus was entirely not on saying the right thing in an interview or trying to answer in a way I thought, someone might like to hear. I tried to be authentically myself in the entire interview process, because I thought if they don't get to know the real me, they're going to be hiring the wrong person. And if I don't get the job and they got to know the real me, then we've both dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective too to take when you're going into an interview. I mean, of course, we see candidates all the time get caught up in, just wanting to get this job or even just wanting to make a positive impression. And a lot of people maybe focus on selling themselves or selling their skills or selling their experience. And it can be easy when you're doing that to forget about just presenting your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
But also in terms of presenting where you can add value. I think that's a great reminder to take for anybody who's about to walk into a job interview. Hopefully they're listening to this on the car, in the car on their way there, and they'll remember to focus on where they can add value. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made?
Shooting my sights too low, not recognizing in myself what I can say at this point others recognized in me. And even with taking on this job, others recognized something in me that I didn't yet recognize in myself. And so I would say some of my career progress, I was shooting my sights for jobs where I'd already done 100% of what that job description entailed, instead of recognizing that I could have done, 60% or better and learn and improve myself on the job. And so it forced me to do all the growth in my volunteer roles. And, thankfully I did that, because I think that's really given me so much perspective that I bring to my new role. But if I was offering some advice to other people in the industry, I'd think in terms of looking for organizations that promote people based on potential. I've definitely seen circumstances where the men in the organization are promoted based on potential, and the women will do the job for 2 or 3 years before they then get the title. And it's just something that's a little subtle, and we see women progressing in an industry that is still very male dominated. We don't necessarily see how their progress came about. And that's sort of one area I would encourage women to think more about. How can I move ahead based on my potential, not just based on what I've already proven I can do? And I'd encourage organizations to think about women being promoted more on potential as well. Because I think both sides of that equation could do just a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're an organization that is promoting based on potential, to make sure that you are doing so for all of your employees.
I'm really grateful to the companies I've worked for allowing me to grow my role. So I came in sort of as almost like a lateral move and then grew the position. And that I have to give a lot of credit to those organizations for allowing that, because some people put down a pretty tight lid. And that's a missed opportunity, I think, with many of their staff. So letting people evolve their departments or their actual roles is a benefit for everybody.
What principles guide your conduct and decisions in business or in your career?
Treating everybody fairly and with respect. And that goes both ways. Like not just the people who are what you perceive to be your superiors in the industry. Absolutely everyone you come in contact with is understanding that we're all coming into any circumstance, any interaction, very likely trying to do our best. No one comes in trying to mess it up for everybody else, no matter how it might end up. Right? Yeah. But it's certainly in this role something that I want to keep in mind, because there will be strong differences of opinion. But if you believe that everyone's intentions are to get to a common goal of like, for example, the members of VRCA being best served, they just have different ideas on how to do that. But the goal is still the same. They want the best value for the membership. And so that's something that I would, try to follow myself. But you also have to be able to recognize when somebody comes in and their goal is going to be more self-serving. And so, you do the very best that you can, but you can't, be a doormat either.
So with as much as you've had on your plate, a couple of volunteer organizations at the same time, plus a full-time job, plus, raising daughters, how do you maintain that high performance without running into burnout?
Well, I can't say that I haven't run into burnout. I've definitely experienced that, and I would say that it's something that I am really putting focus on right now, is making sure that every day those things that are good self-care, that I don't skip that. So I do get up extra early, so I make sure I get a walk every morning. And I started that January 1st this year, because really during COVID, I was working crazy hours at home, living alone, very sedentary. And I would, wake up too early and immediately go to the laptop. And I would go all day long, and until my bladder was going to burst, I didn't get up and even move from my chair. And I was skipping lunch. And by the time I'd wrap up at, 6 o'clock at night, I was ravenously hungry. I hadn't moved. I hadn't eaten anything healthy. I hadn't done anything to manage my stress. And I would eat, because I was so starving, I would eat something that wasn't necessarily good, but it was fast. And I would then just crash into bed, and I'd start it out the next day exactly the same way. And January 1st hit, and I wanted something more for myself. I didn't want to be surviving my life. I wanted to be thriving and enjoying my life, and hopefully living it for a few more years. Yeah. And I just started doing a 10-minute walk in the morning, and a 10-minute walk at lunch, and a 10-minute walk after work. And I started enjoying those walks so much that I missed them if I skipped them. And they started getting longer and longer. And I started eating lunch. And I wasn't ravenously hungry at the end of the day. And then I started losing weight by not really doing much. And that started being encouraging. And I started feeling better. and I started looking forward to things more, and I started wanting to interact with people more. And then I looked back on the year, that COVID year prior, and thought, I never want to be back there again, COVID or not. And it could happen easily. I mean, there's probably never been a job that I've ever had in my life where there's a better opportunity for me to work myself to death than this job. But who does that serve? None of the members are going to have better value from VRCA if I work myself to death. So I hope that for the whole team, I'm going to model good self-care, meditating every day, quick and easy thing to do. You don't need to be you don't have to have a PhD in meditation to do it. Yeah. Walking, something really simple. Any of us can throw on our running shoes and go for a walk. Eating regularly, and having time with friends, making time for that, not being at all just about work, making sure that there's a belly laugh every day, which I typically have.
Yeah, you're good at that.
I'm good at that.
Yeah. So mitigating those, that burnout by, ensuring you make time for those small moments of self-care. And then also you've already answered, my next question is, how do you facilitate high performance on your teams? It sounds like you're also encouraging those small moments of self-care throughout the day or throughout the week, for the rest of your team as well, which I think is great advice. And just like you said, something that's so easy to forget, especially for those who are working from home. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for work to just take over, and you stay so contained in those four walls, and you forget about getting outside a little bit, and making sure that you eat on time. I'm someone who previously had to set alarms to remind me to eat, because otherwise I would, get wrapped up in something and forget. And I'm sure a lot of people have the same experience. So those micro moments of self-care.
Yeah.
I like that.
There's two things that I think are great for taking the temperature of your team. Two questions you can ask is, how's your sleep? And are you able to stop thinking about work when you go home? If either of those things are creeping up as a bit of an issue, you need to have some serious conversations about either workload or stress levels. It could be a wide variety of things that could be the problem, but you never want to exchange your health for a job, and we should never have to. So if somebody's sleep is starting to fail because of something at work, and if they can't leave work behind and enjoy their lives and their families and their weekends and their evenings, then it's going to be eventually a burnout, or eventually they're going to leave and pick another job where they can be more healthy.
What makes a good leader, mentor, or coach?
I would say the most important thing is actually caring about your teams as humans first and part of the team second. And because if you've got that covered, you're gonna avoid a lot of the landmines. But if you see your team as simply a resource to an end, members of that team are going to fall off. The stress levels are going to be enough, and that the productivity is going to go down. If you can make sure that everybody knows that they're trusted and valued, and part of that is making sure you have the right people on the team, making sure that they are people that you can trust and that they are capable of doing their job or learning their job. If you've got that down, and then it's a matter of just getting out of their way. If you've got the right people, let them do their job. Be there as a support and somebody to bounce things off of. And hopefully one of the things that I bring is a lot of years of experience. And so if somebody on my team brings me something that is fantastic, and I can say to them, but there's this one thing here. Have you thought about this? Could this be potentially a bit of an issue down the line? And they go, oh, yeah, thanks. I hadn't seen that. You're not taking their work and tearing it up and saying start from scratch. It's, here's a little tweak on my perspective based on my years of experience. Does it have some value for you? And it might be that it's just a discussion, and maybe it's not a good idea. Some of my ideas aren't good ideas.
Can't be right all the time.
Can't be all right all the time.
Yeah. So allowing that autonomy, and then, giving some feedback, but still, allowing your team to run with those ideas for sure.
And when everybody trusts each other, I can give feedback and they're not going to take it as you're bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, have you considered this?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that jumped out at me. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I just think if you have a team that doesn't trust you, you will be the last one to hear the bad news. If you're a leader, you need to be the first one to hear the bad news. And your team needs to be able to trust that you are going to handle that bad news appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And that's certainly going to be a goal of mine, that everybody here, everybody on the VRCA team recognizes that I can be the first one to hear the bad news.
So another good check-in this time for leaders or managers out there, checking in with themselves on where they're at in terms of leading their team, asking themselves, if can their team come to them with that bad advice, and if the answer is no, maybe doing something to adjust that, fix it.
Yeah, ask yourself, how do I respond to the bad news?
Mm-hmm.
What is my go-to? And one thing to consider is, do your responses come from fear? Mm-hmm. Because when we're operating from a place of fear, we're far more likely to overreact and react inappropriately. And if we can recognize our own fears as leaders and be working on those behind the scenes, then our interaction with our team is going to be less fear-based and more open and ripe with opportunity for people to grow and learn.
Yeah, very good point. What project are you working on that you're really excited about right now?
The VRCA U40 committee, that is the future of our industry. And we've got a lot of tribal knowledge that is going to be retiring and leaving. And we need to transfer that tribal knowledge to the leaders of tomorrow, to our U40, and making sure that the opportunities for people coming into leadership to put their own spin on it, to do things their way and to have the fresh ideas, but to not lose the wisdom that was gained through trial and error and a lot of hardship from the people who are leaving. So I really want to support our U40 members and support that interaction overall in our industry. This is something I'll be doing all the way through while I'm at VRCA, is I want to be talking to members. And the more members I can talk to as early as possible, the better for everyone, because this association is all about the members and their voices being heard. And so I want to encourage anybody who's listening that's a member to not hesitate to email me or phone me. I had a great conversation on my drive home last night with a U40 member, and at the end of the call, he said, I wasn't sure if it was okay for me, or the word he used was if it was appropriate. And I'm telling everyone, it's appropriate. I need to hear this. So please do me the favor and contact me and tell me what you want me to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just appropriate, but encouraged.
You bet.
Yeah. Here's one of my favorite questions. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started your career?
I am enough.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And I learned that very late in life. I just kind of learned it recently. I'm actually tearing up saying it out loud. And it's something that others have said to me and have said, if you're ever having self-doubt, say out loud, I am enough. Mm-hmm. And it does some interesting things to our brain and to our amygdala. Yeah. And it's true no matter what.
Yeah.
It's true no matter what. For every single one of us, we can all say, I am enough.
Yeah. And some people, need to be reminded that they are more than enough. Yeah. I've managed some people in my own career who maybe don't doubt that they are enough, but, doubt that they are doing well, or that they are where they want to be in their career. And, especially as a leader, you may need to remind your team when they are excelling, when they are performing at an extraordinary level, you may need to remind them that, hey, you are extraordinary. These results are extraordinary, beyond being enough.
Yeah.
But just at a very basic level, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminding
I'm
yourself.
a huge fan of celebrating.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta look for those wins wherever they are, and we need to celebrate them, because it just sort of it takes away that opportunity to beat yourself up and, well, we could have done this better, we could have done that better. It's that, you know what? Let's look at what we just did. Let's take a minute to like, well, look what we did, no matter how small it is. We could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
Yeah.
And let's take a moment to celebrate.
Celebrate those small wins for sure. What do you think marks a strong company culture?
A people first culture, but that has to be real. That can't be words on a page, and it has to apply to everyone. It's not some people first. That's going to do more harm than good. And I think that's a pretty common value for most companies. It's a hard one to live up to, because many of the people in leadership, there's other people they're answering to as well, and typically what they're answering on is a bottom line. Mm-hmm. And sadly, sometimes the people are the first ones to go on the back burner to achieve the bottom line that you're answerable for. Mm-hmm. But I think that the companies that stick around the longest and who weather the storms the best are the people who legitimately have an all people first value. Mm-hmm. And when I started here, that's one of the things I said to the team was, you are a human first, mm-hmm. and an employee of VRCA second.
Yeah. And
that's the way things are going to be done around here. And I think it develops a loyalty that's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly seen in my career, and you may have as well, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening will have had experiences where they were very loyal to a company only to regret it. So companies need to make sure that their staff doesn't regret being loyal. Mm-hmm. And that takes commitment during the hard times, not just the good times.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think you're also right that almost every organization at least attempts or aims at putting people first. But like you said, I think it's a very, or maybe not so easy to do mm-hmm. in practice. And I think it takes focus to do that, and a real conceited effort mm-hmm. to make sure that people come first, not just when things are easy, but when things are hard. Yeah. That's when it's especially important to remember to put people first.
Yeah, and that takes a long-term perspective, not a short-term perspective. Mm-hmm. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And
if you want your business to be in business for a long time, you'll take that seriously in any circumstance.
Yeah. A marathon, not a sprint, is very right. And I think that's something that a lot of people say often. And I read something the other day that said, stop thinking about your business or your career in terms of years, and start thinking about it in terms of decades. Just like you said, that long-term planning and making decisions, based on how you want people to feel, or where you want your company to be in a decade, mm-hmm. rather than next year. Although with COVID, I think maybe we're just getting through it 1 year at a time. So perhaps future planning to happen after that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those listening, please follow us on YouTube and on LinkedIn so you can catch our next episode. And thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.